Okay, so we'll be looking at common mistakes IELTS test takers make and how to prevent them. Okay. All right, so let's go straight on to look at the overview of the test. And I can see that some of us have, written the exam before, and for some of us, we are about to write. So I would like us to, in the chat box, tell me some of the things we know about the IELTS exam. What do we know about the speaking test, the structure of the speaking test, the structure of the listening test, what we know about the structure of the reading, and also what we know about the structure of the writing test. Okay. All right, Jeremiah, I hope you can hear me now. Okay, I'm not hearing from us. If you want to unmute your mic and speak, please, you can. If you want to drop it in the chat box, you can. So let me hear from us. Okay, I already have the speaking display, but let me still hear from us. What do we think, or what do we know about the structure of the exam? For those of us who have had the privilege to take the exam before. Okay, so Mary says she has taken the exam before twice, the academic. Okay. All right, so let me just go right in. I think. Okay, so for the speaking test, it's a face-to-face interview, and it's either going to be physical or via a video call like we are doing now. And it's going to last for maximum of 14 minutes. It has 3 parts. The part 1, where we talk about familiar questions or personal questions, right? Familiar or personal questions. Then we have the part 2, which is the long turn, and that's where we get to talk for 2 minutes without the examiner, interrupting us. Then we have the part 3, which is a 2-way discussion, and it's just purely on general and abstract questions, general and abstract questions. Okay. So let's look at the listening. Now, for the listening test, it's going to last for 30 minutes. It's going to last for 30 minutes. But for those who will be taking the paper-based exam, right, you have 10 minutes to transfer your answer. And if you're taking the computer-based, you have 2 minutes to cross-check your answers. And the listening test has 4 parts, and you get a total of 40 questions. In the first section, you hear a conversation between 2 people, and they'll be talking. It could be maybe a conversation about how to. There was one that was on. Okay, what's the word now? Okay, it was on job adverts, searching for a job. So in the audio, someone was calling a friend, to find out about an agency, right, that helps people get jobs that has to do with relating to marketing and customer service, administrative rules, basically, right? Then in the second section, you get monologues, and in the third section, you're going to be getting a conversation too, but this time around, it could be between 2 or it could be between more people. And it's based on educational training, or educational context, or a training context, right? And the part 4 is a monologue. So for the listening, we have like 9 different question types. Though you're not going to get the 9 on your exam day, but then it's good you're familiar with all the 9 different question types. All right. So for the reading, we get 3 sections. Now, for the academic exam, you would be given 3 long passages. 3 long passages. Why for the general, you're going to get 5 passages, 2 short passages in the first section, 2 short passages in the second section, and 1 long passage in the third section. And for all, you'll be getting 40 questions, approximately 14 questions. So the maximum number of questions you will get is 14 per section. And then we have like 14 different question types. And just like in reading, in listening, that they're not going to ask you all the question types. Also in reading, they're not going to ask you all the 14 question types on your test day, right? They will just ask you just some of it. And then there are some common ones, popular ones that, there is a probability that you would see on your test day, like multiple choice, like matching heading, like denote completion, like summary completion. Those ones are, common to an extent, right? Then let's look at the overview of the writing. Now, I'm well aware that the writing aspect of the exam is one of the challenges that most test takers have. So we have 2 tasks here, and in the first task is going to last for 20 minutes, and you're expected to write a minimum of 150 words. So if you're taking the academic, training, you're going to be getting a diagram. So you have to describe a diagram. And then the diagram could either be a map, or it could be a process diagram. It could be charts, maybe bar charts, line charts, pie chart, or table. And then there is something we call the multiple charts. They can mix up any of the charts together for you to, describe. Then the general training is going to be a letter writing, and it could be any of the format of letter writing. It could be formal, informal, or it could be semi-formal. All right. So for the task 2, now I just explained for task 1 that you're expected to spend 20 minutes and to write a minimum of 150 words. For the task 2, you have 40 minutes. You have to spend 40 minutes, and you have to write a minimum of 250. So don't go below the word count. Don't go below the word count. Make sure that you write exactly 250 or 150 or above, right? Don't go below the word count. And then in this task 2, you are going to be writing an essay. You have 40 minutes to write the essay, right? And there are different ways you can ask the question. They could ask for your opinion. They could ask you to discuss 2 views. They could ask you to state the advantages and disadvantages of a topic. They could ask you for the causes and effects of a topic, or problems and solutions, right? So the questions they're going to ask you are going to be general questions. They're not going to ask you specific questions, right? They could ask you about obesity. They could ask you about advertisements, right? There is a particular question that I was talking about. Some people feel that advertising, makes people buy things. When you watch an advert, it encourages you to buy. And some other people feel that, okay, advertising is too popular nowadays that we don't even pay attention to it again. So the question was, discuss both views and give your opinion. So in that situation, you're expected to talk about the 2 views, the 2 different views that people have about advertising. Then you share your opinion on the topic advertising. So that means at the end of the day, you're going to be telling us, oh, if you feel that those who think that advertising is too common, if you are of that school of thought, or if you are of the other school of thought, that it encourages people to buy. And then if you're on the fence, right? Well, most times I advise, don't be on the fence, just choose a side. It's an exam, just choose a side, write it well, and get your good grade and move on, right? Okay. So let's move on to talk about the common mistakes people make in the speaking, right? And the first thing I'm going to mention here is not practicing. There's a way sometimes, especially for those of us who, enjoy having conversations with friends, with families, with colleagues, we feel that, oh, I talk now, so I know how to talk. I will definitely know what to say, right? But it's good to practice because it's an exam, and there is always, maybe not for everybody, but I think for most people, there's always that that kind of exam fever, right, at the beginning, because you are going to take an exam. It's not like we are going there to just chit chat. It's an exam that will be graded on, right? So it's good to practice. It's good to practice before, you know, your test day, so that you have built a level of confidence when it comes to communicating. You know, people throwing questions at you and then you answering the question. Then another common mistake people make is that they do not give extended speech. So what do I mean by extended speech? Your examiner asks you a question, then you give a direct answer and you stop talking. So maybe the examiner asks you, how many languages do you speak? Right, that's the part one question, by the way, when they ask you personal familiar questions. And you're like, I speak 2 languages, then you stop talking. That way, there's no how they can grade, or there's no how they can judge your speaking ability that way when you just give them that short answer. So you have to give them more, right? How many languages do you speak? I speak 2 languages. I speak the English language and the Yoruba language. You know, extend your talk. Don't just give them a short answer, right? And I advise 2 to 3 sentences for your part 1. And then it's in part 3 that you can now go on and talk for long, because it is called a two-way discussion. It's supposed to be more like a discussion between you and the examiner. So the examiner is not going to just listen to you all through, right? The examiner is going to come in, chip in, you know, probably ask you questions from an answer you already gave, right? So for this, the speaking test is meant to, it's meant to be like a conversation between you and the examiner, right? Then for another mistake people make is not preparing for part 2. Now the part 2 is where you are expected to prepare your answer for a minute. They would give you a cue card and a question is going to be there. They could ask you, describe an hotel that you know. Then there will be some bullet points in it, like what the hotel looks like, the facilities in the hotel, why you like the hotel. You know, you are expected to prepare your answer because you're going to be speaking for 2 minutes non-stop, right? And if you didn't prepare well enough, you might not be able to speak for that 2 minutes. 2 minutes looks short, but when you're speaking, it can look, it can seem really long, you know, when you're speaking. So it's good you also prepare, right? When you're practicing, don't just look at the question, or maybe if you have someone, you know, a trainer guiding, don't, when the trainer gives you the 1 minute to prepare, don't just think it up in your head and like, oh, okay, by the time I start talking, I would know what to say. No, get a pen, get a paper, prepare what you want to say. Then I have here forming the native speaker's accent, right? I think some people have the notion that, oh, I need to speak with a British accent, or I need to speak with an American accent, or maybe a Canadian accent, since okay, it's an English language test. It's British Council that holds it, and IDP in Australia, you know, I have to speak with, you don't need to speak with the native speaker's accent. You don't need it, right? For instance, I'm an IELTS trainer. I tutor people on IELTS, and I don't speak with the native speaker's accent. Now, how will I put it now? Your examiner, or let me rephrase that, British Council examiners, and let me just use the word IELTS examiner. I think that's better. IELTS examiners understand a range of accents, right? So if you have the Nigerian accent or you have the Indian accent, they would understand you, right? The only issue that you could have is probably your accent is affecting the understanding of the word you want to give them. So I have a common example for us here in Nigeria. You know, in Yoruba, we have this v, like v and f issue, right? So when we want to say something like favor, we say something like therefore, right? So when I say therefore, the examiner obviously would not understand what I'm saying. So those are the times when, okay, my mother tongue accent can affect my English language, and the examiner would not be able to pick what I am trying to say. And then don't try to impress your examiner. That's another mistake we make. We want to impress the examiner that, oh, okay, maybe I can speak, or don't try to impress them. If you want to smile, if smiling makes you comfortable, please do. But don't think because maybe I smiled or because my examiner is not smiling, maybe I'm not doing well. No, some of them are just going to be really professional, and you won't be able to tell whether you're doing well or not. You won't be able to read their expression, right? And for some, they would, you will see it from their body language and from their expression that, okay, they are, let me use the word encouraging in that sense. Okay, keep on, right? So, but not all examiners are not going to be like that. So don't try to impress them. Just go there, be yourself, be comfortable in your own skin, right? And answer the questions well. Now, if you feel that you're talking too much, you could just find a good place to end your conversation, and don't end it on a note that it looks like, okay, you still have something more to say, right? You have to end it with in intonation, we call it falling tone. You have to end it with falling tone. And then sometimes if you're talking and the examiner cuts you short to ask another question, that doesn't mean that, oh, okay, I've gone way overboard, I've spoken for too long, and no. It just means that the examiner has quite a number of questions to ask you. And the whole test is maximum of 14 minutes, right? So they need to just cut you short at some time or at some point so that they can ask you more questions. And then another common mistake is silence when a question is asked. Even if you don't know the answer to the question, like if the question came and it threw you off guard, don't go quiet on them, right? You could say things like, maybe they ask you something about, okay, what's the difference between a restaurant and a cafe, right? And a cafe. Okay, maybe you're not too familiar with that, and instead of going quiet on them, right? You could just say, okay, the difference between a cafe and a restaurant. You could even rephrase the question that, oh, do you mean, right? Or do you mean a cafe where people walk in to get something? You find a way to rephrase the question so that as you are doing that, right, we call it delayed speech, like you're delaying the time so that you can think through what you want to say, okay? So don't go silent, don't go quiet on them. At least be thinking something in your mind, right? As you just give some short speech to delay while you think about what you want to say. Then I think I've kind of touched this, not pronouncing words correctly. When I was talking about forming native speaker accent, so you have to be sure that you are pronouncing the word correctly. Be sure you have. If you think that there is a word you're not pronouncing well, I think it's best to learn the right pronunciation. Don't just assume, right? Then grammatical mistakes.
Who is that? Who is that? Okay. Who is that? Amaka, if I slap you, I think I'm in the training.
Okay. Please mute yourself.
All right. So another thing here is the grammatical mistakes, right? You need to improve your grammar. Now, when you make a mistake, you're permitted to correct yourself. They call it self-correction, right? It's good to self-correct, but it's also important that you don't have too many self-corrections. So that is why practicing is very key. When you practice, you get better. You're able to speak more fluently. And then having a flat tone, right? And a flat tone, I think in Nigeria, we have a flat tone. We have the sing-song pattern of the native speakers. So we might have, develop that. And another thing I say to test takers is you have to be confident. If you're confident in yourself, you most likely would not have a flat tone, because when we're excited, we express ourselves better. So I encourage that, build your confidence so that can help you keep that sing-song pattern to a large extent, right? And then I have another common mistake is not being aware of the band descriptors, right? So we have 4 band descriptors. We have fluency and coherence, we have lexical resources, we have grammatical range and accuracy, and then we have pronunciation. So they're going to be grading your speaking ability based on those 4 band descriptors. So you can go online and download it. There is a public band descriptor. Now the public band descriptor is just like an abridged version, yes, of what the examiners use, but going through them, reading them would really help you know what is expected of you to do. And then another common mistake is giving memorized answers. So don't memorize that, oh, okay, when I get there, when they ask me for my name, I'm going to say it like this. No. Don't give any memorized answers, right? Just be yourself. You know, I say this, that if you go for an interview, right, how would you communicate to show that, okay, I'm good for the job, right? It's not like you already have access to the questions the interviewer is going to ask you, right? So just see it that way, that, okay, I'm just going to be myself and I'm going to speak comfortably, right? And another way you could see it is, okay, I'm going to have a conversation, you know, a discussion with a friend, right? Those are ways, you know, I tell test takers to look at the speaking test so that you're comfortable, you're not panicking, right? Though they're not going to be grading you on whether you panicked or you didn't panic. But then when you're panicking, there's a way it affects how you express yourself. You might end up not being fluent. So you need to build your confidence so that by that day, you are good to go. Even if they throw a question that you're not very familiar with, you know, you can use your confidence, right, to, you know, just dance around the question and tell them something. Because at the end of the day, for the speaking, right, they are not judging, they are not specifically judging the content. It's good that your answer relates to what they've asked you. That's why in the band descriptor, there's no place where you would read that they will tell you that, okay, the test taker gives the right answer to the question asked, right? But it's also good. In fact, it's not also, it's very good that your relates to what, to the question that the examiner has asked you, okay? So I have some how to prevent here, and I think I've actually mentioned all this while I was showing us the common mistakes. So let's move on to listening. Now, before I move on to the listening and reading aspect, there's something called accent fossilization, right? And what that means is as we grow older, it becomes more difficult for us to change or to pick up another language accent, right? The older we go, the more difficult it becomes. And that is why your focus should not be to try to communicate like a native speaker. Your focus should be, I want to pronounce the words clearly and correctly, right? That should be the focus, and not trying to, you know, speak in a fashionable or sophisticated manner, okay? All right, so let's look at some common mistakes that test takers make in listening and reading. Now, the first one is spelling, right? Now, in the IELTS exam, for the listening and for the reading, the listening, you're going to be, audio will be played, and then you would listen to it and pick your answers from what the speakers are saying. And in the reading, you're going to be picking your answers from the passage, right? Now, don't formulate answers for them. For instance, if the speaker said location, or let me use the word locate, and if maybe it's a reading passage, you find locate there. By the time you want to fit that answer into the question, right, and it's not looking like this thing makes sense grammatically to you. So a mistake people make sometimes is that they will now change the word form from locate, which is a verb, to location, which is a noun. Please don't do that, right? You have to give them exactly what they said, if it is or what you read in the passage. Now, if it is in reading, right? So please check your spellings, very, very important. Check your spellings and pay attention to plural markers. Check the word, okay, pronounced, if it is in speaking, be sure that you heard post without the S. And if it is the plural form, be sure you heard posts, right? So that's one of the points to pay attention to. And it's one of the places where people make mistake when they write a singular form of the word instead of the plural. Then another thing I would say here too is that I advise that when you're writing your answer for the listening and reading test, I advise that you capitalize your answer, right? It's an advice. It's not like it's a law or a rule. No, it's an advice. And why that's what I have here in the third bullet point here, capitalization error, right? So even though it's listening, so even though it is the listening test or the reading test that, there are some questions you have to fill in the gaps, right? When we are transferring our answer to our answer sheet, tendency that we might start the word by writing the first letter in capital letter. So say the answer is free radicals, right? And you wrote capital letter F, then words in small letter. You're going to miss the answer. Why you're going to miss it is that by the time your answer is lifted and placed into the question, into the blank, right? You don't start, how will I put it? You don't, So when we write, right, we only start the first word, the first letter of the first word in capital letter. So most times IELTS blank gaps are in the middle of the sentence. By the time you write, wrote your F in capital letter. By the time they lift it and place it into the blank space, you've committed the capitalization error. Because the F should have been in small letter, not capital letter. So it's advised that you just capitalize all your answers. There is more chances that you might make the capitalization error if you're writing than if you're writing all your answers in capital. Then another thing I have here is the word count. All right, another thing I have here is the word count, especially for completion questions, for the listening and for the reading. They will tell you something like no more than 3 words, no more than 2 words, no more than 1 word or a number. Now you have to pay attention to that instruction. So if they told you no more than 1 word and you wrote 2 words as your answer, they're going to miss it for you. So any little mistake means you are wrong, even if you get the answer right. So say the answer is South African tunneling species. Now, there is a question like that actually, that's the answer. So that particular question said no more than 3 words. And the answer from the passage, you saw they wrote South African tunneling species. Now, if you wrote everything that way, you're going to miss it because the instruction says no more than 3 words. So you have to pick the key words. And in that question, it was South African tunneling, right, as the answer. So you need to pay attention to word count as well. Then I have here another common mistake is not matching meaning, right? I always stress that pay attention to meaning much more than paying attention to words, because IELTS paraphrases a lot. They are not going to create their question based on how the speakers have spoken or have said whatever they have said. Also in the reading passage, they're not going to form the question or create the question based on how the author has said it or written it out. No, they're going to rephrase it. They're going to make use of synonyms. They can rephrase a whole sentence, right? So you need to pay attention to matching meaning. So after I've read my question, what is this question asking me to do? So that when I'm going to search for my answer, I'm searching for my answer with a particular meaning in mind. And when I locate where I think the answer is, right, I need to read it and then think about, okay, what I just read, right, is the meaning matching what the question is asking me to do? So when you do that, it becomes easier for you to, locate your answers easily. The questions are not going to be easy. It's an exam, so it's meant to be tough, right? It's meant to, maybe want to shake us up a bit. They wouldn't make it very easy on us because it's an exam, like I said. So we have to be very critical to a large extent, not to the extreme, but to a large extent. So match meaning, right? Rather than just looking for word, what's the way they frame the question, you're looking for word that way in the passage. You might not find it. Most times you will not find it because they would have the question would have been a rephrase of what is said in the passage. Okay, then I have it, I'm not being aware of all the different question types. So it's good that before your exam day, at least you familiarize yourself with all the different question types they can ask, right? In listening, we have completion question types. We have note completion, form completion, we have summary completion, sentence completion. Okay, we have diagram labeling too as well, right? So then we have, those are for completion questions. Then we have what we call matching question. Then we have maps, right? They can give you a map and ask you to start filling in the right word for, they will label it ABC and all. So you have to fill in the correct word to the alphabet in the maps. Okay, then there's the multiple choice. That's for listening. Then for reading, reading has everything that listening has, just that we have more. Okay, so for the matching in reading, for listening, we have just one matching question. But for reading, we have 4. We have matching features. Some people call it classification questions, just in case you come across that on online, right? Then we have the matching information to paragraph. We have the matching headings, and then we have matching sentence ending. So they'll give us like incomplete sentence and expect us to find the other half of the sentence from a list that they would give to us. Okay, so that's matching sentence ending. Okay, then I have it, writing what you think the answer should be. Okay, I think I already said this already when I was telling us about locate and location, right? So don't write what you think the answer should be. Write what the speaker or what the writer has written in the passage, right? That is what your answer should be. And then don't, I used to say something, don't bring in outside knowledge, right? You might be lucky to get a passage on a topic that you are very familiar with. Don't bring in your idea into the passage, just focus on the information given to you in the passage, okay? Then I have it that for listening, playing the audio more than once while practicing. This is a common temptation. When you are practicing, please don't replay the audio. Don't say, I didn't hear what they said here, so you rewind to listen again. Please don't do that, because on the test day, they're not going to replay the audio for you. So one of my students had an experience. On the test day, someone was coughing where she was. So they didn't hear a part of the audio. And the examiners told them that they cannot replay it. So at the end of the exam, all they just did is fill a form, right, to complain that someone was coughing. I think like 5 of them, that someone was coughing around them, so they didn't hear part of it. So if they can be that strict, right, I'm just trying to show you the extent to which they can be very strict. So please, when practicing, don't play the audio more than once. After you're done and you grade yourself and you say, oh, okay, I didn't get this, you can now go back after you've graded yourself to find out why you missed the answer so that you can do better next time. But when you are still, picking your answers, please, no rewinding and no going back to play the audio from the beginning because you missed some answers. Please don't do that. Then for the reading, not using the reading skills as a guide to locating the answers, okay? So I said that you don't have to read the whole passage. You don't have to read the whole passage to identify your answers. Most times I don't. I don't read the whole passage. All you just need is have a good understanding of skimming, scanning, and close reading. The moment you have a good understanding of those 3 reading skills, right, it will be easy for you to locate the answers. That said, I still tell people that if you feel you're a fast reader, if you think you can read 900 words in 2 minutes, and you're sure you will understand what you've read, please go ahead and read. So it's not like it's a law that you must not read the passage. No, it's just to make the process faster, right? That is why we just go straight to using the reading skills. And even though you read the whole passage, that does not mean you still not make use of the reading skills. So either way, you still need to learn how to use the reading skills. Okay, and I already mentioned this already, that listening for or searching for exact questions in the audio passage. So don't do that. Don't look for exact words, okay? All right, so the next thing we'll look at, I have how to prevent them here, but like the other ones, I've actually explained it while I was mentioning the mistakes. Okay, so for writing, now, one of the mistakes we make in writing is not understanding the whole question. When we write out of context, right? They will be grading the content of what you have written. So you have to make sure you understand what the question is asking you to do. So it is advised that you spend like maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes to read the question and understand it. For task 2, I advise 3 to 5 minutes. You know, just read the question, understand the question, think about the ideas you want to use to develop the essay. Right? Don't just rush into it and start writing, because when you do that, you get stuck in the middle, and it's an exam, right? The moment you are stuck, there's a tendency that, okay, anxiety will kick in and you're panicking and okay, time is going, how do I do this? So it's best to just make sure you understand the question very well from the beginning. Pay attention to keywords in the questions or in the question. So what do I mean by keywords? Keywords are nouns. They are adverbs, they are adjectives, and then verbs. I know there are 4, and then verbs. So those are words that carry meaning in English language, right? If I say go, everybody understands go. But if I say and, the next thing you want to ask me that, and what? If I say at, the next thing you want to ask me is what are you trying to say? So those words don't carry meaning, like preposition, conjunctions. They're just used to show relationships between nouns, adverbs, adjectives, and verbs. So those 4 parts of speech, verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs, are the key words, are the words that carry meaning. So pay attention to them and understand the purpose they are serving in the question. So I already said that don't write out of context. And if you understand your question well, you wouldn't write out of context. Then another thing is, while writing, please, at interval, go back and reread the question, so you are sure that you've not gone off course. Okay. Then I have making too many grammatical mistakes. So you need to work on your subject-verb agreements, work on concord, right? Work on your sentences, how you construct sentences, work on your spelling, right? One of the common mistakes I've noticed so far is with the use of comma. People misuse commas anyhow, right? And because, how will I put it? And I'm sure that is one of the key things the examiners are looking at for, because I've seen it many times. In fact, I'm tired of seeing it. The errors with commas is really, really much. So please pay attention to it. Pay attention to errors you are prone to. Even with spelling errors, if you think that, oh, you make a lot of mistake with has, HAS, and AS. So I feel that one of the reasons we make mistake with that and those 2 words is because of how we pronounce them. So we have has, that's HAS. There is an sound, the H sound is before it. But the other one is AS, is as, right? But most times we pronounce it has. We pronounce it the same, the 2 words the same way. So that's one of the reasons I believe people make mistake with it. So differentiate those words. If you make mistake with from and form, this could be a possible mistake. You switch the letter O and R. So pay attention to your common mistakes. Then I have a no linking your sentences and paragraphs. Okay, so this is where linking words, or let me call them cohesive devices, words like however, in addition, but this is where they are good. But as good as they are, don't overuse them and don't underuse them. Don't paint your essay with firstly, secondly, however, conversely. Don't make it too much. If it is too much, there is a probability that you might not have above a band 6, right? So don't make it too much. Don't underuse, don't overuse. And how you might want to ask, okay, so how do I know I'm not underusing? Keep practicing. Keep practicing. Try to connect your sentences sometimes. And then linking sentences does not mean that, oh, I must use a cohesive device, right? You could have given a reason, say something like, people are obese because they eat a lot of junks, right? You can start the next sentence with this is because. So that has linked, by starting with this is because, you have linked that particular sentence to the previous sentence. So it's not compulsory you need to have a linking word in quotes to begin the sentence. Just make sure that there is a relationship between what you have written and what you're about to write, okay? Then I have it, I'm not being aware of the different question types. So now I say this, that IELTS is easy, but there are a lot of information for you to consume. A lot of information, right? So it is important that you take your time and learn all these different things. For tax 1, for academic, I mentioned all the different question types. And it's not as if they will ask all these things. They're not going to ask everything. They're just going to ask one. But imagine you just learned how to write an opinion essay, the one where they ask you, they give you a topic and then they ask you, do you agree or disagree? So if you just learn, do you agree or disagree? You didn't learn when they ask you what are the advantages and disadvantages. You didn't practice if they ask you, discuss both views and give your opinion. What if that is what now comes out in the exam? Or for academic, you only learned how to describe bar charts. What if a line chart comes out? What if a pie chart comes out? What if a process diagram comes out? You know, how would you handle that? So it's good to be aware of all the different question types. Then I have a not answering the whole question. Now, in fact, this is, you will see this in the band descriptors for the writing, right? They will use, I think, I can't remember which, I think maybe a band 6 or band 5 now, where they wrote it there that the test taker did not fully answer the question, right? So you must make sure, if the question asks you, I'll be using more of tax 2 to explain this. If the question asks you, discuss both views and give your opinion. If you only discuss the 2 views and you did not give your opinion, you have not fully answered the question, right? And or if they ask you, what are the advantages and, okay, no, don't let me use that. Let me use, do you agree or disagree, right? If you end up talking about the topic generally, you did not talk about whether you agree or disagree, right? You have not fully answered the question. Then another thing is not developing your ideas. I would show you an example of that, not developing your ideas. Then not understanding the band descriptors. Just like speaking, you also have to understand the band descriptors, what they would use to grade you. You can get the public band descriptors online, right? You can just type online on Google, public band descriptors, you will get it, download the PDF, read it, make sure you understand them, okay? Then I have a given, oh, I made a mistake in the spelling. Give a memorized answer. Please don't give memorized answer. Don't cram that, okay, this is how I want to start my introduction. No, don't, because you are not going to get exactly the same question that you practiced with. You might be lucky to get something similar, but you're not going to get exactly. Then I have a writing statistics and data, okay? So I noticed that for some people, they tend to have statistics and data as their example. So maybe after saying something, they say something like, a recent survey has shown that 60% of people with junks, you know, have obesity issue, or 60% of people who are obese, you know, eat junks. And no, don't give them that, right? Just give them, because in the question, you will see there that give reasons and examples from your own experience, right? So it's best to just come up with examples that have nothing to do with statistics and data, okay? So I want to show us now, this is a paragraph that is not fully developed. Okay? There are many advantages to working at home. Firstly, it cuts down commuting time because you don't have to travel to work. Secondly, it is more flexible because you can choose the time you work. Thirdly, it is very convenient because you don't have to leave home. Fourthly, it saves cost. Lastly, it means you can spend more time with your family. Now, I have like 5 points in this one paragraph. It's too much. In fact, I advise that don't have more than 3 points that you want to develop for the whole essay. Because the challenge with having so many points, right, is that you will end up not developing. There's no how you want to do it. You cannot develop everything. You can't. And for every point you give them, they expect you to develop it, to explain it, to support it with examples, to give evidence. So if you have too many points, you can't develop everything. Right now, I have 5 points here in just one paragraph. There's no explanation here. Right? But let me show us another one. The main advantage is the fact that it means that we do not have to commute to and from work. This saves us lots of time because we are not stuck in a car or train every morning and evening. For example, okay, a recent report, okay, all right, this example has statistics and data, but personally, I advise against it, right? For example, a recent report in the Times stated that the average person working from home saved around 20 minutes per hour. A related benefit is that it enables us to be more flexible with our time. By removing the need to be in the office from 9 to 5, people can start earlier or work in the evenings. Personally, I prefer to work at night, and the internet has given me the freedom to spend time with my family in the morning and work after they are right. So this paragraph has just one main point. Right. So just develop maybe 2 points in the paragraph, and you have to show. That's one of the places where linking devices to show that okay. Okay, so all right, you have to show that you are going to talk about another point in the paragraph. So maybe after you've explained the first one, say we want to bring in another point here, I will have something like additionally, that means relating to what I've said, and I want to give another point. Okay, so these are common mistakes people make, right? And it's good to work, especially let's really improve on our grammar, right? And let's read. I advise reading. Don't let's see it as, oh, it's an English language test, right? I've been speaking English all my life, so I know what to do. I know what to say. No, don't see it that way. There are strategies to answering the questions. That's why you have to practice. That's why you have to study. That's why you have to get tutored. You need to be trained, right? Because there are strategies. Okay, so any questions? I've come to the end of my slide. So any questions, please? If we have any question, we can drop it in the chat, or we can unmute our mic to ask. Okay, so I have a question here. Should cap locks be used in writing as well? Okay, yes, you can, but you must make sure that you're very clear. So that means you're writing all your essay, everything, all the 250 or 150 words, you're writing it in uppercase. You're writing them in uppercase. You can, but make sure that your punctuation marks are clear. Because sometimes you can write in cap locks and we forget to punctuate. So make sure your punctuation marks are clear. I think some people that write in cap locks do it because their handwriting is not legible enough. I think that's why those that I've seen try that out. It's because they want to make their handwriting legible most. Okay. I hope I answered that question. I think I have another question here. Okay, so if I says, please, I need recorded version. Okay. Okay, Stanley is asking that you advised against use of statistics. What about tax one? So you're talking about the academic, right? In the academic module, right? The tax one, you are going to be asked to describe a data. Okay, so that's tax one. Now in tax one, remember that you are not bringing examples in for tax one for the academic. So I'm talking about use of statistics, right? In writing tax two, right? It's an advice. It's not like it's not like it's a rule, but it's an advice. And I've listened to a British Council examiner, right, actually answer that question, right? The question has been asked before, right? So it's advised that you don't for tax two. But in academic tax one, you have to give statistics. Why? Because you are describing a data where statistics have been given. Like bar chart, they can give you maybe the statistics of well, there's this question. I can't remember the question in full. So I was talking about the use of home appliances, right? They will give you statistics. So you have to obviously mention data. So in academic writing tax one, is a must. You must describe the data by mentioning the statistics, like the data presented, right? So that's for academic tax one. So any other question? I think someone is asking. Let me put it. I think I noticed the question up there. Okay, the name of the application you asked us to download. I'm not sure I mentioned we should download any application. Can you please be clearer? I'm not sure I mentioned that. Okay, can you give us a link to every guide needed to have a good bank score? A link to every guide. I think you should enroll for our tutorial classes to get that. So I don't feel that there is a particular link in that sense, right? Some people go on YouTube to study. Well, I wouldn't say you can't, but you have to be sure of what you are consuming. And that's why we advise to get tutors, right? You have to be sure of what you're consuming. So, okay. Okay, I think there are no more questions. All right, thank you very much. We've come to the end of the webinar. So,
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I was writing questions with regards to charts and graphs. Are they only for academic students, or general students should also expect such questions?
Okay, so that's only for academic. So for general training, you're going to be writing a letter. So it's either they ask you a question that is going to be a formal letter or an informal letter or a semi-formal letter.
Okay, thanks.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your time. I apologize for the glitch earlier. So we've come to the end of the webinar. If we have any more questions. Okay, so you can visit our web app at www.prepmewell.com, right? We have free test there, right, for you to take. I would advise to go there and take the test. I've tried them out, so I know their quality and I know what they can give you. So try them out so that you know your level before you go and write your exam. And if you're getting anything below a 7, please make sure you're well prepared. Make sure you're getting like 7 and above before you sit for the exam. Okay, so just visit www.prepmewell.com. We have 5 free mock tests for you to try out. Then you can also enroll for our tutorial classes. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of today's webinar. Bye.
Sorry, please, I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry, my question is how do I go about the registration for your tutorials?
Okay, so I'm supposed to share the link, okay, but I don't have access to it at the moment. All right, so I'm going to drop a contact which you can reach out to.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. All right, just reach out to that number, right? You'll be guided on how to also reach out to us. The recording, okay, how do we get the recordings? Okay, it's going to be on our YouTube channel. So just search for Prepmewell on YouTube, right? You get access to the recording. So any more questions? Okay. Someone, am I the one? I think I'm reading, should cap blocks be used again? So please let's reach out to that number 08061265214. Okay. No more questions. All right, no more questions. All right, okay. Thank you.